The FBI doesn't terminate anyone based on case assignments alone.
Has the FBI ever been sued by somebody who felt that they were terminated based on case assignments?
In the entire history of the FBI, I'm sure they have.
No, since your tenure.
I'm sure there's ongoing litigation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Director Patel, I'm glad that I'm going a little out of order here because I'm going to pursue some of the things that you were just talking to Mr. Fry about and remind you about your confirmation hearing. At your confirmation hearing in January, you said under oath, and I quote, "There will be no politicization at the FBI. There will be no retributive actions taken by the FBI should I be confirmed." And in your written response to the Senate questionnaire, you said, I quote, "Personnel decisions shall be based on performance and adherence to the law, and every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments." So I want to just go through a couple of scenarios with you to get a sense of whether you think these are examples of politicization of the FBI or making decisions based on the performance and adherence to the law. So, first question. Would hiring FBI agents, analysts, and supervisors from only one political party being politicization of the FBI or making personnel decisions based on performance and adherence to the law?
We don't ask FBI applicants where their political parties are.
Mr. Patel, do you ask FBI applicants who they voted for?
The FBI does not.
Are you aware that in the lawsuit that Mr. Driscoll filed against you and the FBI, he was asked who he voted for?
Since that lawsuit has been filed and it's ongoing litigation, I'm not able to comment.
Well, but it also means that you just said that what happened in his situation didn't happen. So we will go on to the next question. Let me ask you an even easier one. Does firing agents for working on the cases that they were assigned to and that the president didn't like, is that politicization of the FBI or making personnel decisions based on performance and adherence to the law?
The FBI doesn't terminate anyone based on case assignments alone.
Has the FBI ever been sued by somebody who felt that they were terminated based on case assignments?
In the entire history of the FBI, I'm sure they have.
No, since your tenure.
I'm sure there's ongoing litigation.
Yes. In fact, there is ongoing litigation. And in fact, people have been asked who they voted for. And in fact, you are running an FBI for the President of the United States rather than the people of the United States, because my questions were not hypotheticals. They are the things you have done during your tenure. And according to a lawsuit filed last week by long-term FBI agents, you fired former acting director Brian Driscoll. He had served with the Bureau for nearly 20 years, earned a Medal of Honor, Medal of Valor for bravery during the dangerous ISIS raid, and had a wealth of crisis response experience and led the FBI's critical incident response group. When the Trump administrations interviewed Mr. Driscoll for that role, they interrogated him about his political leanings and who he voted for in the last 5 elections. Questions Mr. Driscoll refused to answer because those types of questions impermissibly politicized the FBI. You also fired Steve Jensen, who served the FBI for nearly 2 decades and ran critical terrorism, counterintelligence, and organized crime operations, whom you once described as embodying what the American public demands of the FBI. But he was fired because he took part in investigating crimes committed on January 6th. And Trump's MAGA base lambasted you online for keeping him at the FBI. So he's no longer at the FBI. You also fired a decorated combat veteran with decades of experience in the Bureau, Special Agent Walter Jardia, because he worked on the investigation into the Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and helped investigate Trump's ally, Peter Navarro. Director Patel, it is very clear that you have flunked your own test. You've put saving your job, which I actually believe you were being honest about during your confirmation hearings, over doing what's right for the FBI and the American people. That is not adherence to the law. Thank you, and I yield
The Bureau
back.
does not dismiss employees solely because of the cases they are assigned. Has anyone ever taken legal action claiming they were fired for that reason? Across decades of the FBI's existence, it's almost certain such claims have surfaced. But what about during your leadership? There were likely cases still moving through the courts. September 17, 2025, a session of the House Judiciary Committee. As the day stretched on, North Carolina Representative Deborah Ross approached the microphone near the close of hours of testimony. Her focus was not on Epstein-related materials, nor on crime rates or immigration policy. Instead, she arrived with a prepared document, statements Patel himself had made under oath during his January confirmation, and 3 specific individuals. She thanked the chair and acknowledged Director Patel, noting she would shift slightly out of sequence to follow up on his earlier exchange with Mr. Frey and revisit his sworn testimony.
During that January hearing, she reminded him he pledged there would be no political influence within the FBI. He promised no retaliatory measures would occur if he were confirmed. In written answers to the Senate, he asserted that employment decisions would depend strictly on job performance and compliance with the law. He also stated that every staff member would be judged by identical standards and that no one would lose their position due to the assignments they were given. With that in mind, Ross said she wanted to present a few situations to determine whether they reflected political bias or legitimate, law-based personnel decisions. Her first question: if hiring were limited to individuals from a single political affiliation, would that constitute politicization or adherence to merit-based standards? Patel responded that the FBI does not inquire about political party membership. She followed up: does the Bureau ask applicants who they voted for? Patel said it does not. Ross then referenced a lawsuit filed by Mr. Driscoll alleging that he had been asked exactly that question. Patel declined to address the matter, citing ongoing litigation. Ross pointed out that his earlier answer had already contradicted that claim.
She moved to a second scenario. If agents are dismissed for working on cases disfavored by the president, does that reflect politicization or lawful personnel management? Patel reiterated that assignments alone are not grounds for termination. Ross then asked whether, during his tenure, any lawsuits had been filed by individuals claiming they were fired for such reasons. Patel acknowledged that legal actions were likely underway. Indeed, Ross confirmed, there are active cases. And in those cases, individuals report being questioned about their voting history. She concluded that his leadership appeared aligned more with presidential interests than with the broader public. Her examples, she emphasized, were not hypothetical. They reflected actual events under his direction. She cited a recent lawsuit filed by veteran FBI personnel, including the dismissal of former acting director Brian Driscoll. Driscoll had nearly 2 decades of service, received a Medal of Valor for his actions during a high-risk ISIS operation, and led the Bureau's critical incident response team. During consideration for a role under the Trump administration, he was questioned about his political views and voting history across multiple elections, questions he declined to answer because they compromised the agency's neutrality.
She then referenced Steve Jensen, another long-serving official with extensive experience in counterterrorism, intelligence, and organized crime. Patel himself had previously praised Jensen as exemplifying the qualities expected by the public. Yet Jensen was dismissed after participating in investigations related to January 6th, following public criticism from the president's supporters. Finally, she mentioned Special Agent Walter Giardia, a decorated veteran with decades of service, who was removed after working on inquiries into Russian election interference and assisting in an investigation involving a presidential ally. Ross stated plainly that Patel had failed to meet the standards he himself had set. She argued he had prioritized maintaining his position over upholding the integrity of the Bureau and serving the public interest. In her view, that did not reflect fidelity to the law. She concluded her remarks and yielded her time. What unfolded was a deliberate contrast. Ross began with Patel's own sworn commitments: no political interference, no retaliation, equal standards, and no dismissals tied to casework. She then presented 3 distinct examples and asked him to classify them: bias or merit. First, limiting hiring to one political group. Patel denied that such information is collected. Ross countered with Driscoll's allegation that he had been asked about his voting record. Patel declined to elaborate, yet his earlier denial stood in tension with the claim.
Second, dismissing agents over controversial assignments. Patel insisted that does not happen, yet he acknowledged ongoing lawsuits suggesting otherwise, an implicit admission that such accusations exist. Then, Ross named the individuals. Driscoll, a decorated leader with extensive experience, allegedly questioned about political preferences and no longer employed. Jensen, once praised by Patel, removed after working on January 6th cases. Giardia, a veteran agent, dismissed after participating in politically sensitive investigations. 3 individuals, 3 terminations, each tied not to measurable performance, but to the nature of their work and surrounding political dynamics. Ross's final judgment was blunt. Patel had not lived up to his own criteria.
He did not offer a rebuttal before her time expired. This moment raises important considerations. These are not vague claims. They involve identifiable agents, documented service records, formal legal filings, and detailed accusations. The director stated under oath that such practices do not occur. Yet multiple lawsuits assert that they have. One individual claims he was asked about his voting history. Another lost his role after public pressure from political supporters. A third was removed following involvement in an investigation connected to a political figure. Patel's earlier assurances and these allegations now sit side by side in the official record, left for others to evaluate. Please subscribe. This World Eye News.